Good evening. My name is Brian Otot, and I'm superintendent of the Paulding County School District, and I'm once again joined by Mr. Eric Hofstetter, who is our Chief Operations Officer.
That's right.
And we're here this evening for our second community forum regarding boundary realignment, specifically in middle schools and dealing with McClure and Moses. And just really appreciate you joining us tonight and giving us an opportunity to share what we have for you this evening, but also just your participation and your willingness to provide us feedback. And of course, one way you can provide us feedback is to go to slido.com, and that's SLIDO.com, Slido, and our meeting event code is T782. And once you've logged in, please go into polls. And when you're into polls, there is already a question there for you, and that is, what school does your child attend? And again, that gives us an opportunity to kind of really know who our target audience is here. I know in our last meeting, it was predominantly parents from McClure Middle School, but please take a minute. We've already had, oh, there we go. 85% thus far of our parents that have indicated are McClure Middle School students. So again, it helps us know who our target audience are, who you are. So please make sure you let us know exactly where your children attend school. So what is our plan for this evening? One, we do want to take a few moments to review what we discussed in our first meeting. And that's just generally the background and guidelines regarding the realignment process. And then we would also like to walk you through really the proposals that we're putting forth tonight for your feedback. They are already posted actually on our webpage, which is www.paulding.k12.ga.us/planning for the future. And if you go onto the website, the homepage itself, the easiest way to get to that is to go to the upper right-hand corner, and there's a little planning for the future button. You click on that and it'll take you directly to that page. Another great way, because we want to remind you how you can interact with us, is to email us directly, and that's planningforthefuture@paulding.k12.ga.us. Again, this is really a great opportunity for you to provide us feedback during this process. So as I said, we want to take a couple minutes to actually review briefly what we discussed at our last meeting. I would like to thank our communications department as well as our technology department for all of their support so that we can come to you live from beautiful downtown Dallas here in our studios. But to start with, we'd like to share a video that really puts an overview on this process and what's got us here today. So we're going to start that video and appreciate your being with us tonight.
The school district's Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, or ESPLOST, has provided funding for a wide range of projects to improve our schools over the years, including curricular materials, technology hardware, and new construction. In 2019, the school district held a series of community conversations giving stakeholders an opportunity to provide input on the challenge of enrollment growth. By a wide margin, stakeholders chose constructing new schools and new classrooms as their preferred option to address overcrowding in schools. A short time later, the school district held a referendum to renew ESPLOST to continue adding new classrooms in areas where the need is greatest. In November 2019, Paulding County taxpayers overwhelmingly approved the 5-year extension of ESPLOST. Two projects now nearing completion are a 16-classroom addition at Russell Elementary School and a 22-classroom addition at Moses Middle School, both in the northeast quadrant of Paulding County. The northeast quadrant of Paulding is where the county is experiencing the fastest rate of growth as new construction continues to bring new family housing in neighborhoods. This new development means more and more families will be moving to our county, and in turn, more and more students will be attending Paulding schools. For those who live in northeast Paulding, bulldozers turned earth and new houses under construction are a familiar sight. Multiple developments are in progress right now, and they will add many hundreds of new homes to our community. And there are more developments that have been approved or are in the planning stage. Growth projections show that several schools already are exceeding their planned capacities or will be exceeding capacity in the next few years. Those schools include Abney Elementary School, Shelton Elementary School, and McClure Middle School. The classroom addition at Russell Elementary School will help relieve overcrowding at Abney and Shelton, and the classroom addition at Moses Middle School will help relieve overcrowding at McClure. The issue now is which students will fill those new classrooms. At those 2019 community conversations, it was not surprising that stakeholders cited students changing schools as the most concerning side effect of fixing overcrowding. But they also acknowledged that adjusting attendance boundaries is the most effective way to balance enrollments among schools, and it is the surest way to relieve overcrowded conditions, keep class sizes manageable, and provide a comfortable learning environment for all students. As the Russell and Moses classroom additions near completion in time for the 2021-2022 school year, the school district is conducting an attendance boundary review with the aim of shifting a portion of students from the Abney and Shelton Elementary School attendance zones to the Russell Elementary School attendance zone, and from the McClure Middle School attendance zone to the Moses Middle School attendance zone. Your voice will be an important part of this discussion, and we appreciate that you have decided to participate in tonight's community conversation. This event will be the first step before the school district begins drafting specific options. Once those plans are drafted, you will again have an opportunity to provide input before any final decisions are made. As always, we appreciate your support for strong schools and quality education, and we look forward to the conversation ahead.
And I'd once again like to thank our communication department for putting that video together for us. Again, it is available on the Planning for the Future website. We hope you'll take an opportunity to look at it. So far, it appears we have 66 people joining us on 67 on Slido, and right now we have 85% of our parents participating from McClure and 15 from Moses. Again, why would you want to go on Slido right now? One, it is really a great feedback vehicle for you, because not only are we going to ask you what school your child attends, we're also going to ask you to give us direct feedback. So if you haven't already, go ahead and log into Slido, slido.com, enter meeting T782, select polls, and you'll see there that gives you an opportunity to let us know where you're from, but also there are other questions on there that give you a direct line of feedback to us. And in case I forget, Slido will remain open for 1 hour after the meeting. So if you come back later and you want to edit or you want to add something, you can do that 1 hour after the meeting. So again, we talked about our webpage. And right now, what I'd like to, let me talk a little more about what we did last time in our community conversation. I'm going to start with reviewing where we came from. We used Slido in our last meeting. We asked you several questions, and I want to take a minute to review. In the first one, in our last meeting, we had 146 online participants, and oddly enough, the ratio between McClure and Moses is pretty much identical to what we're seeing tonight. We also asked you, for this attendance boundary review, which guiding principles are most important to you? And in that response, or the responses that night, the most popular response was minimizing the disruption to students, followed by at 50%, prioritizing equitable access to high quality instruction for all children. And we're going to review those general guidelines here in a moment. And another question we asked is, what secondary criteria is most important to you? And there, keeping neighborhood is intact, as well as school feeder pattern alignment, were two very important trends that we looked at as we approached this process. So now to the website. Again, talked about it once, I'm going to talk about it again. Planning for the Future has all of the documents that we've shared thus far as we've approached this boundary realignment. It's all in one place. And the thing I'd really like to draw your attention to is the frequently asked questions. After our last meeting, or during our last meeting, actually, you were giving us questions and feedback. We consolidated those and provided responses. So again, that FAQ is there. I think it's a great wealth of information from you. And you'll also, if you submitted a question, you'll see your question listed there in the FAQ section. So please make sure you keep up to date with the Planning for the Future website, as that's our repository. That's where we're putting all this information for your review here in the Paulding County School District. So what we'd like to do now is just briefly review some of the tenets we talked about in our last meeting. And Eric, do you want to start with the guiding principles that the district utilizes.
Yes, yeah, and absolutely. And as we zoom in on the slide for everyone to be able to see it much better, again, the guiding principles act as a framework of which we approach the boundary review process. And as shared prior, we utilize these guiding principles throughout the entire process. And we request for you to once again use these guiding principles to assist you in organizing your commentary and feedback from tonight's community conversation. Now let's quickly review the guiding principles. 1, we prioritize equitable access to high-quality instruction for all children. We evaluate through a district-wide perspective by considering individual school capacities and student population projections. We attempt to minimize disruption to the greatest number of students. And we comply with all federal and state laws and, of course, board policy JBCCA and board regulation JBCCA-R. Now, in support of compliance, board policy JBCCA and its supporting regulation outline specific actions that the district must comply with as options are developed. Now, we encourage our parents to visit and read the entire policy and regulation, which can be found on the Planning for the Future website.
Again,
Dr. Otto, would you like to, you want to speak a little bit further about the policy?
Trying to create that one-stop place for you so that you can find all the information you need. One of the most frequent questions we have is in reference to school choice and boundary realignment. And as Eric mentioned, regulation JBCCA-R actually addresses that in the request to remain process. So basically what it says, in a boundary realignment, if your family is impacted and you wish to remain at the school that your child was attending, and you're able to provide transportation, you can do so if seats are available. Just know that those are prioritized though, and in reference to middle school, of course, priority would go to 8th grade, 7th, and then 6th. If we have a limited number of seats available, of course, we would unfortunately have to go to a lottery system. So again, JBCCA-R allows for school choice and request to remain specifically. And again, it is if you're willing to provide transportation for your student and there are seats available. And again, like we said, that's right there, not only in our board policy manual online, but it can also be found on our Planning for the Future website. So now, one of the other things we talked about last time, Eric, was those secondary criteria that we look at when we're in the realignment process. So if you'd again review those for folks who may not have been with us last time.
Absolutely. So as shared in the first community conversation, the district staff uses several criteria in which to evaluate potential options. Your commentary and feedback in the context of these criteria were strongly considered as staff developed proposed boundary adjustments. Again, we ask that you use these criteria to frame your commentary regarding the options that will be presented tonight. So let's review the criteria for our viewers who may be joining us for the first time. We start the development of options with 3 primary criteria. 1, geographic proximity, which is the distance traveled using available routes of transportation. 2, instructional capacity, which is the number of students who can be accommodated at the school, including the number of classrooms and resource rooms needed for art, music, labs, English to speakers of other languages, special education, and gifted programs. And 3, projected enrollment, which is the number of students assigned to a school, including the future projected enrollment. And here I'd like to once again thank the partnership we have with the Paulding County Planning and Zoning Department, who provide residential and commercial building data and permit data that are especially important when developing enrollment forecast models.
Absolutely. Much appreciate the support.
Now, when primary criteria indicate more than one option, which is usually the case, then options are evaluated utilizing, but not limited to, the following secondary criteria. 1, safety and traffic patterns, which are factors impacting accessibility of the school from all portions of the attendance zone, including travel time, traffic flow in the area, safe operation of school buses, and other safety considerations. 2, previous redistricting. The school system seeks to avoid frequent rezoning of subdivisions and neighborhoods if facility sizes and geographic distribution of student populations allow. Now again, this can be very challenging during periods of high growth in specific geographic locations, such as the area we are focused on during this review. 3, balancing of special programs. And special programs are those serving children with special needs that require use of additional space over and above a regular classroom. Here, and where possible, the school system avoids setting attendance zones that would place a disproportionate number of special programs at any one school. 4, school feeder alignment. Where possible, consideration is given to the alignment of elementary, middle, and high school attendance boundaries. 5, intact neighborhoods. And again, where possible, consideration to assign entire geographic neighborhoods, subdivisions, or other locations to one attendance zone. Now, as a general rule, the larger the neighborhood or subdivision with larger amount of school-age children, the more challenging it becomes to keep these neighborhoods or subdivisions intact. And then lastly, efficient and economical operations. And these are factors that contribute and promote fiscal responsibility to the district's overall operation. And again, we ask that you consider these criteria when developing your feedback and commentary from tonight's community conversation.
Thanks, Eric, for reviewing that. And we just wanted to make sure if you're new, you were not here last week, that you had an opportunity to see the context with which we approach this process. And now at this point, though, Eric is our Chief Operations Officer, Eric Hofstetter, and one of his responsibilities also includes our building program. So do you want to talk a little bit about where we are with the Moses Edition and give people an idea of what that looks like?
Absolutely. And here we have a slide that's been updated. And first I want to thank, and I'm very proud of our facility services team and all the folks that go into supporting the construction of a new classroom addition or any other school building. Now, this new addition features several energy management devices to include LED lighting and all kinds of modern building automation. Along with several general purpose classrooms, the new addition is also highlighted with 2 integrated STEM labs, a fully equipped computer lab, a special education suite, an administrative office, and a school clinic to support student health services. Furthermore, the addition is connected to the existing school building with an enclosed corridor to provide additional safety for our staff and students, as well as additional parking for staff, parents, and visitors.
And, just showing you on our visual of the school here, you'll notice to the right, you'll see that connecting safety vestibule.
That's correct.
And that's something we wanted to incorporate to make sure that students could transition from building to building without actually having to go outside as part of that process. We're really proud of the progress that's been made at the Moses site. And Eric, we are anticipating this to open actually or be ready, construction complete before the end of the school year.
That's correct. We're in the final stages. We have furniture ordered. We're laying in the final pieces, getting ready to finish the parking lots out, and it's going to be a great learning environment. We're very excited for what's about to happen there.
Absolutely. We're really proud of that addition. And Eric also works with projections. So
That's
Eric,
right.
do you want to talk them through where we are with Moses and McClure?
Absolutely, absolutely. And here you can see on the slide, and again, this might be a review from last time, but this is where our current school capacity is and what our current enrollment is, along with our current capacity utilization and our projected enrollments for next year and for the 23-24 school year. Now, again, with McClure Middle School approaching critically overcrowded status and severely congested roads, it was incumbent for the district to construct additional space in this area. In collaboration with County Planning and Zoning and assessment of current school facilities, it became apparent to construct additional classroom space at Moses Middle School because Moses Middle School has the available land and required core areas to construct up to 22 classrooms, increasing the overall capacity from 675 students to 1,050 students, thus providing potential relief to McClure Middle School attendance zone, as well as accommodating growth within its own current attendance zone based on its current 4-year projections. And here you can see in the yellow columns, that is our projected enrollment for next year at each school and the capacity utilization. And then, the green column, you'll see the projected enrollment for the 23-24 school year. Again, further explanation on how we arrive at and all the methods we use on the Q&A that's been posted. There's a pretty lengthy answer that goes into about all the different models that we use and how we arrive at these forecast models.
Right. So a lot goes into this process, and I know most of you are joining us tonight to look at these options that we want to present to you in terms of our initial look at the boundary realignment process. So Eric, will you go ahead and go through the options we have to share with our community tonight?
Yep, absolutely. So here again, we have the map that we can focus on our attendance boundary options. Now, we appreciate the feedback and commentary you provided us from Community Conversation 1. And I'd like to share with you that staff gave sincere consideration to your commentary we received in development of these attendance boundary options, and we look forward to your commentary and feedback from tonight. Now, to help orient our viewers to the geographic area we are referring to, this map zooms in on our focus area, which includes both the current McClure Middle School and Moses Middle School attendance zones. This particular map also identifies many of the subdivisions currently constructed or in planning to help our viewers understand the nature of how the proposed lines were drawn. And also to help categorize your commentary and feedback, each zone has been identified as option A, B, or C. And it is important to note that each of these options presented is independent of the others, but can be combined as well.
Thanks, Eric. Going to go ahead and talk about A.
All right, so let's get to option A. And option A here is located on the western portion of and adjacent to the current Moses Middle School attendance zone and the southwest portion of the McClure Middle School attendance zone, just west of State Road 61. And as we zoom in a little bit further, you will see that the zone includes the properties along the area of High Shoals Road, Raccoon Creek Road, and south of Thomas Road. It includes, but not limited to, the neighborhoods of High Shoals, Black Forest, Timberlake Estates, Point North, the Vistas at Point North, the Falls at Raccoon Creek, and the Gardens at Melanie's Pond, as well as all other properties within the proposed lines and shaded area. Our travel analysis is now dependent on the time of day, actual location of residents, and other potential road factors. However, our enrollment forecast is that option A provides 38 middle school students.
And Eric, you want to go ahead and talk about option B?
Okay, so option B is located on the northeast corner of the existing Moses Middle School attendance zone and the southeast corner of the McClure Middle School attendance zone. And as we zoom in further, you will see that the zone includes the properties along the eastern portion of Cedar Crest Road. It includes, but not limited to, the neighborhoods of Traditions at Cedar Crest, Oak Crest, Burnt Hickory Meadows, Alexandria Place, Oak Hills, Crossroad Farms, the Gates at Amber Hill, and Wyatt Ridge, as well as all other properties within the proposed lines and shaded area. Now, our travel analysis here suggests that although McClure Middle School may be less miles in distance, travel time due to traffic congestion during the peak morning arrival and dismissal times is consistently and significantly greater than the travel time to Moses Middle School.
Right.
And our enrollment forecast is that option B will provide 75 middle school students at build-out. And build-out refers to the Traditions here, this subdivision, Traditions at Cedar Crest development, which some of you may know of as the old YMCA fields. And those houses are currently being constructed, and we forecast those to be done within the next year or two.
Right. And when we talk about travel time, I think all of our people who are watching tonight know that that challenge of Harmony Grove Church Road, the stacking of traffic, so that does increase travel time, even though it may be a mile farther to Moses, the amount of time you're actually spending in traffic is less.
That's correct, which is one of our secondary criteria where we have to look at is travel.
Right.
Now let's look at option C. So now option C, as you'll see, is just to the north of option B. It's also located toward the northeast corner of the existing Moses Middle School zone and toward the southeast corner of the McClure Middle School attendance zone. Now, as we zoomed in further, you'll see that the zone includes the properties along Cedar Crest Road and the properties to the south of the Seven Hills Connector. It includes, but not limited to, the neighborhoods of Woodland Crossing, the Crown Club at the Park at Cedar Crest, the Park at Cedar Crest, Oak Glen, Cedar Mill, and Cadell's Place, as well as all other properties within the proposed lines and shaded area. And here again, The travel analysis suggests that, again, although McClure Middle School may be closer in distance, the travel time, again, due to that congestion we spoke of during the peak times, is consistently and significantly greater than the travel time to Moses Middle School. And this here, option C, our enrollment forecast is that it will provide 165 middle school students.
So as we have approached this process and we spoke to everyone in our first meeting, of course, our goal is to balance enrollments between these two schools.
That's correct.
So Eric, will you go ahead and take them through kind of what the different options may mean to both Moses, McClure, and then see them both together?
Absolutely, absolutely. In the next series of slides, we're going to look at that and evaluate that impact of enrollment. So this enrollment impact, this table here reflects the actual numbers and capacity utilization for each of one of the schools, and it applies it to the projected enrollment for next year, which is in the yellow columns, and the 23-24 school year, which is indicated into the green column. Just take a moment there to take a look, and then as we go to the next slide, we're going to look in depth here. Now, using the data on the previous chart, this graph is designed to help the viewer understand the impact on projected enrollment at McClure Middle School for each of the options, again, both independently and grouped together. Now, as seen here, if no action is taken, McClure is about 133% of its capacity and approaching that critical overcrowded status. And as you can see further, that option A has a little impact, option B has a little bit more impact, and option C even a little bit more impact. However, the most significant impacts come from combining more than one of the proposed options. And we'll take a minute here just to look at that. And then let's go and look at how the impact is projected on the enrollment for Moses Middle School. Okay, and as seen here, again, if no action is taken, Moses is about 81% of capacity for next school year. Now, this includes the 22 classroom addition. Again, option A has little impact, option B a little more, and option C even a little bit more. But the most significant impacts, again, come from combining more than one of the proposed options. Okay. Now, if we take a chart, and let's put both of them together, and this chart here kind of compares for each of the options and gives us some value and some suggested data. Okay, so as seen here, if we look at option A, it has a little bit of impact for both schools, option B a little more, and again, option C a little bit more. Okay. However, again, the most significant impacts come from combining more than one of the proposed actions. I also want to share with our viewers that it's very common practice for schools to operate between 100% and 120% of capacity, which on this chart is reflected in yellow. And as we can see here, just take a moment, those options that tend to produce equilibrium.
Correct.
And balancing.
You know, could you talk a little bit, Eric, before we leave here about the searchable database?
Absolutely. So to help our parents, on Monday, February 15th, there will be a searchable database of addresses for each option found on the Planning for the Future website. Now, these addresses were taken from the tax assessor's database, so if you're unable to find your address but you believe your residence is within that proposed zone, then feel free to contact us and we'll verify to make sure
we
it is.
clarify
That's right.
for you.
That's right.
Again, that questions like that, you know, would be a
Absolutely.
great place for that planning for the future at paulding.k12.ga.us.
Okay. Now, yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, as Chief Operations Officer, you deal with construction, and the most frequent question we get, really globally, is about construction of a new middle school.
That's
Eric,
correct.
do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I'm honored to talk about it, sure. And we received several inquiries regarding the status of the proposed new middle school. And it was identified and approved by the voters in the 2019 2019 eSplosh referendum. So the short answer is yes, the school district is in planning to construct the new middle school. Now, in order to launch the new middle school project, it is important to note that the district needed to secure an eSplosh bond And we want to thank the voters for also voting for approval for the Board of Education to secure an East Bluffs bond also in that 2019
Which was part of that bigger
referendum.
SPLOST referendum.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's correct. So the importance of the bond allows the district to receive the money up front. And now, whereas East Bluffs collections, they are received monthly. And for East Bluffs 6, the first collection doesn't even begin until April of this year, April 2021.
So in essence, there are no SPLOST 6 funds being generated right now.
At this point, correct. That's correct. So, I'm sorry, therefore, it'll take nearly 4 years to collect enough East Bluffs money to construct the school, and planning suggests we just don't have that long to do. So again, we're pleased to announce that the district, as approved by the Board of Education, recently secured the East Bluffs bond.
Yeah. And some of you are probably saying, well, why is it taking 4 years? Remember, the bigger piece of that bond or that SPLOST program was paying existing property tax bonds. So the construction piece is really only a component of the program, the whole SPLOST program. So again, it does take time to accumulate funds. And I just kind of want to restate what you shared, Eric, because one, I'm so appreciative of our community for approving our SPLOST 6 proposal. Again, we won't even start collecting on SPLOST 6 until April of 2021. But I'd also like to thank our Board of Education because 2 months ago, they actually approved for us to go ahead and issue those SPLOST bonds. And I want to make sure that everyone understands, these SPLOST bonds are different than property tax bonds. SPLOST bonds must be repaid in the life of the SPLOST. So this will not be lingering debt on the district. It will be repaid with collections, but it affords us the opportunity to have funds on the front end so we can begin projects like construction of new schools.
That's correct, because we need the cash now in order to pay the contractors.
Correct.
They don't want to wait 3 or 4 years to get paid.
Sure. So for us, though, if we waited on a monthly accumulation, it truly probably could be upwards of 4 years before we'd have enough funds to fully really engage in that process.
That's
so
correct.
We're very thankful of the voters approving the East Bluffs, but also approving the provision and with it allowing us to call for bonds early.
Now, as a result of getting that bond, pre-design and pre-construction services are currently underway. And those services include the required architectural and engineering surveys and reports that are required to gain approval from the Georgia Department of Education to construct a school, for school construction. It also helps us determine the maximum school size and capacity that the land can accommodate, as well as potential cost estimates of construction and operation of the school. Now, all these reports are necessary to develop the scope and size of the project. Once the information is evaluated, final site selection, programming, and architectural planning will commence. Now, it takes approximately 30 to 36 months to design, construct, and open a middle school. So during that time, the result of constructing a new middle school will impact existing surrounding middle school attendance zones, and again, will subsequently lead to a new middle school attendance zone, which will be developed in a very similar process to the one we're currently in.
So middle school 10 will require another
prior to opening,
process.
that's correct.
That's correct.
So it's coming. Yeah.
So yes, the school is in the works, and again, I want to thank our community and our Board of Education for their support to get us to this point. And I just want to come back to how you can provide us feedback. So remember, you can go to Slido, slido.com, meeting code T782.
Yes, sir.
Go to the poll section. You can let us know which school you're attending, but there's also other questions on that Slido poll. So please make sure you do that. And also, and here are the other questions we'd ask for you to respond to. In the context of the guiding principles and the primary and secondary criteria for attendance boundary reviews, what do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of these three options? Again, this is an open-ended question for you to provide us direct feedback.
Very important.
The other question that we have for you there in the Slido poll is about tonight's meeting. So again, that would be just on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the information and presentation of this attendance boundary review community conversation? Again, giving us feedback on how this is communicated to you and if we need to do a better job of doing so. So make sure you go in and you complete your Slido. It will be open for 1 hour after our meeting tonight. But also remember, you got the webpage and our email site, which is planning for the future at paulding.k12.ga.us. So I do want to take a minute and kind of walk us through a timeline. As we have mentioned in our meeting in January, we did take a presentation to our Board of Education in November of this year. In December, we followed up with the communication plan, which really is basically what we're doing now. And I know with the pandemic, it makes us nearly impossible to meet in large groups. We feel like this format is one way that we can communicate with everyone, and hopefully we've made it as convenient as possible for you. We had our introductory meeting in January. We're currently in our options and feedback meeting, and of course, we're going to come back to you in March, where we're going to bring a finalized proposal again for your feedback, and ultimately our goal will be to present a final redistricting proposal to our Board of Education in April. So again, just walking you through our timeline. You know how to communicate with us. Please make sure that you do so. And I don't know if we can pull up how many people we have online with us right now, just to give us an idea of how many participants we have this evening. But I just want to thank all of you for the opportunity to share this information with you, for being part of this process with us, providing us feedback, and letting us know how we can improve our communications with you. So, thank you for all that you do. This is good night for us tonight. We're looking forward to your feedback and appreciate that all that you do for Paulding County and our school district. Thank you and have a great evening.
Night.